Luke opened the letter and froze. A fine for having a lawn that's too perfect? This wasn't just ridiculous, it was a slap in the face. But when he walked into the HOA meeting room and slowly placed a thick folder on the table, the faces across from him went pale. They realized they had made a huge mistake. But what happened next changed everything. Let's start from the beginning. Luke Harris never expected that a simple trip to the mailbox would turn into such absurdity. The morning was exceptionally peaceful. The sun bathed his pristine yard in warm light, and a gentle breeze stirred the tree branches. He was enjoying the moment until he noticed the official envelope from the Homeowners Association. Right away, he knew nothing good could come from it. The HOA was infamous for its micromanaging, constantly inventing new rules and fines just to prove they were in charge. What is it this time? He muttered, tearing open the letter. His eyes scanned the text, and for a few seconds, he stood frozen, as if struck by lightning. Violation notice. Improper lawn maintenance. Fine, $500. Additional penalties will follow if the violation persists. Luke blinked, reading it again. Improper lawn maintenance? Him? He whipped around, glancing over his lawn, expecting some mistake. But no, it was as flawless as ever. A vibrant green lawn, cut to precision, without a single weed. Perfectly trimmed shrubs, sculpted into symmetrical spheres. Luxurious flower beds, arranged with the precision of a masterpiece. Spotless stone pathways, looking almost polished. This wasn't just a well-maintained yard. It was a work of art, worthy of a high-end landscaping magazine. And they fined him for it? What the hell? He blurted out loud. Looking at the letter again, he could practically hear some HOA board member's smug voice declaring that his impeccable lawn violated neighborhood standards. Rage began to boil inside him. Luke wasn't some ordinary homeowner who mowed his lawn on weekends. He owned the largest landscaping company in the county. His clients included city officials who hired him to green public spaces, elite golf clubs for which he designed championship-level courses, millionaire estate owners whose stunning yards were his personal creations. And now these HOA bureaucrats were trying to tell him what a proper lawn should look like. First came the shock, then the laughter. But within seconds, the laughter faded, replaced by a rising sense of annoyance. These morons have no idea who they're messing with, he muttered, crushing the letter in his fist. A fine for an unmowed lawn? They'd regret ever crossing the wrong man. Luke could barely contain his anger as he pulled up to the HOA office. The sheer absurdity of the situation was beyond him. He knew the Homeowners Association had a reputation for being nitpicky, but a fine for a lawn that looked too good? This was next-level stupidity. Deliberately, he parked right in front of the entrance, blocking part of the HOA's welcome sign. Annoying them had just become his personal mission. The bureaucratic machine. The HOA office looked exactly like its policies, dull and neglected. The building's facade was crumbling, resembling an abandoned nursing home. The lawn was a patchy, yellowed mess with muddy puddles left from yesterday's rain. The bushes were overgrown with weeds, as if no gardener had ever set foot here. The HOA sign hung crookedly, as if hammered in by a drunken carpenter. And these people have the nerve to lecture me on lawn care? Luke scoffed to himself as he walked inside. The stale air smelled of cheap air freshener, mixed with burnt coffee and years of dust, like no one had cleaned this place since the Bush administration. Behind the front desk sat Mrs. Deborah Miller, the infamous thorn in every resident's side. She was in her 60s, with steel gray hair pulled into a severe bun. Her thin lips were permanently pressed into a disapproving line, and her eyes carried the eternal look of someone irritated by the existence of others. She reminded Luke of a strict librarian who hated anyone who dared to breathe too loudly. Luke stepped up to the desk, but Deborah didn't even glance at him. Her fingers clacked loudly against the keyboard, as if she was trying to murder the computer with each keystroke. "How can I help you?" she finally asked, without looking up. Luke took a deep breath, fighting the urge to throw her computer out the window. "Explain to me why I received a fine for an unmowed lawn, when my yard is the only perfectly maintained property in this entire neighborhood?" Finally, she looked up, and for a split second, he swore he saw a flicker of amusement in her eyes. "Your lawn is too green, Mr. Harris." "What the hell?" Luke blinked. "Excuse me?" "The HOA conducted an inspection and determined that your lawn stands out too much compared to the others," she said, her tone as monotone as a robot's. "It creates an imbalance in the community." She spoke as if explaining to a child. Why eating candy before dinner was a bad idea. Luke felt his temper flare. "So instead of getting my neighbors to maintain their lawns, you're fining me because mine looks too good?" Deborah shrugged. "The HOA made a collective decision." Luke's fingers twitched with anger. He held the ridiculous letter in his hands. Clear, written proof that his perfect lawn was now considered a problem. This wasn't just bureaucratic nonsense. This was straight-up injustice. He couldn't believe this was actually happening. Rising fury. These people weren't just stupid. They were petty tyrants. The HOA had always been ridiculous with their fines. Wrong style mailbox? Fine. Forgot to close your garage overnight? Fine. House paint color too bright? Fine. But this? A fine for a lawn being too well kept? Luke felt his blood boil. "All right," he said, taking a deep breath. "Then answer me one question." "What question?" Deborah tilted her head slightly, watching him with mild curiosity. Luke leaned in, narrowing his eyes. "Do you even know who I am?" She blinked. "Excuse me?" "I own the largest landscaping company in this county. I design green spaces for city parks, golf courses, and private estates for millionaires. My lawn is the gold standard of lawn care." For the briefest moment, Deborah hesitated, but then she quickly masked it with her usual indifferent expression. "The HOA treats everyone equally, Mr. Harris." Luke slowly smirked. "Great," he nodded. "Then let's see how quickly your office turns into a landscaping nightmare." He turned on his heel and walked out, leaving Deborah momentarily speechless. Now he wasn't just annoyed, he was pissed, and these HOA idiots had no idea who they just picked a fight with. Luke stormed into his house, slamming the door. So hard the window panes rattled. His mind was boiling over with frustration. He still couldn't believe the HOA had the audacity to fine him for a lawn that was too perfect. He paced back and forth, trying to cool off, but every passing second only made him angrier. In his head, Deborah Miller's voice kept replaying, "Your lawn is too green, Mr. Harris." "It creates an imbalance in the neighborhood. The HOA has made a collective decision." He practically choked on his own outrage. How could anyone be so incompetent and backward-thinking? These people were nothing more than a bunch of bureaucrats who did nothing except make up rules and fine people for the sake of control. But instead of letting his anger go to waste, Luke decided to take action. The revenge plan. If the HOA loved to put on a show, he'd give them one they'd never forget. Luke sat down at his laptop and began strategizing his payback operation. He knew the HOA took immense pride in the neighborhood's image, always boasting about their prestige and claiming that they were the ones maintaining high standards. Fine. Let's see how they react when their neighborhood starts looking like a world-class botanical garden. The next morning, his landscaping crew arrived, with trucks, the roar of engines, the clanking of tools, the buzz of power saws. The commotion immediately drew the attention of his neighbors, turning the lawn into a masterpiece. Luke didn't just maintain his lawn, he transformed it into a work of art. Lush, symmetrical hedges lined the sidewalk, trimmed into perfect geometric shapes. Rare exotic flower beds bloomed with vibrant colors, the kind of plants you'd only see in high-end botanical gardens. A Japanese Zen garden appeared, complete with stone pathways, bonsai trees, and even a miniature bridge. A cascading fountain was installed, flowing gracefully into a carefully designed rock formation. His yard became a breathtaking spectacle. People stopped to stare. Some took photos, others simply stood in awe. Neighbor reactions. "Oh my God, Luke, this is incredible!" exclaimed Mrs. Gardner, his neighbor from across the street. "Are you a professional landscaper or something?" "Something like that," he smirked. "Damn, could you help us fix up our yard too?" added Mr. Wilson, an elderly man whose lawn looked like it hadn't been touched since the 80s. Luke smiled. This was it. "Of course." He paused, letting his next words sink in. "For free." Silence. "Wait, what?" someone asked. "Free," Luke repeated. "I'll professionally landscape your yards, as a gift." The neighborhood exploded with excitement. Everyone immediately agreed. Soon, Luke's entire crew was working not just on his lawn, but on his neighbors as well. Lawns became lush green carpets, bushes took on elegant shapes, and front yards transformed before everyone's eyes. Within a few days, the entire neighborhood looked unrecognizable. Gone were the boring, neglected yards. Now, every house looked like it belonged in a luxury real estate magazine. It wasn't just beautiful, it was perfect. The HOA in crisis, and the best part? The HOA couldn't stop it. After all, they themselves had stated that their purpose was to maintain a high standard of neighborhood aesthetics. Well, mission accomplished. Now their neighborhood truly looked like a prestigious community, and there was absolutely nothing they could do about it. But the best was yet to come. Luke was about to deliver the final blow. A few weeks passed. Luke enjoyed his victory, watching as his work had transformed the neighborhood into a garden oasis. No more boring, unkempt lawns. Every home now looked like part of an elite golf resort. And then, one morning, another HOA letter arrived. Luke narrowed his eyes. He had a feeling this wasn't another fine. By now, they knew who he was. He tore open the envelope and read, "Mr. Harris, we would like to express our appreciation for your contributions to the neighborhood's beautification. Your efforts have not gone unnoticed. However, we must remind you that any changes to landscaping must be approved by the HOA. We invite you to a council meeting to discuss this matter further." Luke laughed. Oh, so now they were thanking him? Gone was the threatening bureaucratic tone from before. Now they were trying to negotiate. How quickly the narrative changes, he thought, smirking. But he wasn't about to let them off that easily. The HOA meeting. On the day of the meeting, Luke walked into the HOA conference room like he already owned the place. Seated at the table were all the HOA board members, including President Robert Carter, an older man with silver hair and a permanently tense expression. They were waiting for him. Luke strolled casually to the table, taking his time, enjoying the tension in the room. Then he placed a thick folder on the table in front of them. Click. The folder's latch snapped open. A stack of official documents landed on the table with a heavy thud. "Gentlemen," he said, smirking, Inside this folder are signed agreements for landscaping upgrades covering 60% of the homes in this neighborhood. Silence. The HOA members' faces went pale. Luke let the moment sink in before continuing. If you continue to obstruct the development of this community, his tone was calm but firm, I will personally encourage residents to terminate their HOA memberships and transfer management to a private property firm. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice just enough to make it feel like a threat. And that firm will be mine. A stifling silence settled over the room. Someone coughed nervously. Another member shifted uncomfortably in their chair. Robert Carter's face had turned ghostly white. He knew they had lost. The HOA surrenders. Carter cleared his throat, adjusted his tie, and carefully chose his words. I think we can reevaluate your situation. Luke leaned back, smiling. Excellent. He tilted his head slightly, as if remembering something. Oh, and that fine you issued me? Consider it canceled. Carter's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Of course. The HOA had given up. They didn't just cancel the fine. They completely backed off. A month later, Luke's company officially secured the contract to maintain the entire neighborhood. The HOA no longer had control. Luke did. The ultimate triumph, he no longer paid HOA fees. Now, the HOA paid him. The ultimate irony? The HOA had fined him for having a perfect lawn. And in the end, he had total control over the entire community. Justice had been served.